Welcome to the UKLC. My name is Scoundrel, joined by Orcs. We're jumping into our second day here on week 5. I'm correct for saying week 5?
Yep.
Yeah, I am. There we go.
It's been week 5 all week.
It has been week 5 all week, and I've only just confirmed that in my head. Second day of week 5. We've got some interesting games coming your way. Let's take a look at the schedule. We can talk a little bit about them in a bit more depth. We've got Barrage taking on MnM to begin with. Enclave then versus Up Envision. Phelan versus Fnatic, and BTXL versus Demise. Now, if I'm completely honest, outside of the first game where I feel like MnM could maybe do some early skirmishing contests, it doesn't look like a particularly close day. You were talking to me about that third match, though.
I think there's potential. I think Phelan, they still have issues, but I think they've been sort of steadily improving. Up against Enclave, that was a big bump in the road, so it hasn't got me too convinced. But there's a possibility. I also actually think the Envision against Enclave game, Envision have looked a little bit rough at times, and obviously they're still struggling. They just got knocked down by Barrage again. If Enclave don't lose the game for themselves, they might have a chance. Maybe something can come from Isaac in the jungle.
I think Isaac looked good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there was some moments in the late game where there was some poor decision making with the Baron, but that wasn't just purely his fault. He got caught out then by Sejuani late in the late game, which ended up giving the win.
I mean, it was just a recall.
Yeah.
Just them all recalling at the same time for Baron, and it feels like they're missing out on the basics, and that's the big disappointment for Enclave, because it feels like they make these big plays. They found in that last game yesterday in the early advantages. So maybe there's a possibility against Envision, but it just has to be cleaner, because if they make a big mistake like that again, Envision are a team who will capitalize on it massively. I think, as you said, I agree, there's a clear favor in every game today, but we've seen upsets before. We nearly saw an upset against XL of all teams. MnM nearly dethroning them, and it was just a clutch backdoor from Sendo.
Yeah,
and
I mean, XL didn't deserve to win that game.
That was the situation. It's not one of those backdoors where it's like, oh, if we don't get it now, we can still get another opportunity. That was the last chance for XL to win.
Yeah.
If Sendo died there, I fully believe that was game over. Unless the only other alternative is special double dashed over the wall and altered it a few more times. But like, for the most part, that was just game over if they didn't get it there. And it felt like MnM had come ahead in terms of the scaling. There were obviously issues with MnM's play throughout, but they managed to match XL in terms of skirmishing. And hopefully, if they can do that up against Barrage, they have a good chance to at least make this a close match. Yeah,
I think MnM have been the most impressive of the sort of the battling teams, I would say, for the sort of the playoffs. Outside the top 3, Fnatic, XL, and Barrage, who are playing now, I think MnM, to me, have looked one of the most impressive teams outside of that top 3 right now. In terms of the way they've played the early game, the fact that they took XL to such a close game, and with the fact with the Envision, I don't think have been playing particularly well. I think MnM genuinely are real contenders for 4th spot.
I think my biggest issue with MnM is they are good in the skirmishes, they are good in the fight. There is no doubt about that. But it's that sort of lack of awareness for objectives and wave management at times, and that's what cost them, because we saw that against Fnatic. Despite the fact that they found some good engages, found some good skirmishes, Xmadi ended up getting like a ton of plates funneled onto him as a Phelios, and that was just too much to overcome. And in the game against XL, even though they were winning the fights in a lot of situations, or at least going even,
they were down in gold pretty much.
They were down in Dragons, they were down in gold, and it's just, if they can manage to balance that a bit better, they've shown they can do that against the weaker teams in the league, but these top rosters, Barrage, XL, Fnatic, still hold a massive advantage in terms of map control, despite the fact the fights can go in MnM's favor. Well,
let's talk about Barrage, actually, because obviously we've just highlighted MnM and kind of the strength of them and how they've performed well against XL yesterday, ultimately losing to that backdoor from Sendo. But let's talk about Barrage, because this has been the surprise of the UKLC, this split. A roster that has never had UK success, never made it out of the bottom 4, I believe. I don't think they've ever placed higher than the bottom 4 in any of the leagues that Barrage have been part of. They've classically always been seen as an easy win in the UK. I'm being honest.
Keep it going, keep
going. No, I am being honest. This is a complete revitalization. Maybe off the back of Ericsson, maybe off the back of their incredibly good bot lane of Kavo and Hado. You even went as far as to say yesterday that Ericsson is the best mid laner in the tournament.
I think as of his performance so far, looking at purely this split, Ericsson has been the best performer. I think Special has had multiple games where he's gone too aggressive, been punished for it. I remember that Yasuo game where he had a great laning phase, but ended up essentially chain dying to the enemy team. And then there's also been Magi Felix, who's actually been punished quite heavily on his scaling picks. And I think as a result of that, Ericsson hasn't really had a bad game so far. Sure, some of them he may not have had the biggest impact or been the main carry for the team, but he's been pretty solid and consistent, and that's why I think he's been the best performer for mid lane so far.
Well, I actually want to talk about drafts because I've actually been most impressed with Barrage's drafts as well. I think we talked about this right at the start of the split. Barrage had a complete overhaul coming into the UKLC. They brought in performance coaches. They basically got guys together they thought personality would mesh in terms of how they play together, how they take feedback, how they grow as a team. And I think it's also translated into the way that they're drafting as well. I think their drafts have all been solid. Sometimes I notice that you will pick apart a draft and you'll say, I don't like what they've done here. I think they've kind of set themselves up for failure from the very get-go. Haven't heard you really say that about Barrage so far.
No, I think they've always had sort of an avenue to get into the game, an avenue to play the win condition. But I think fundamentally it's more than just the draft, which often has good responses to the team. It's how they play in game. I think Barrage is one of the more intelligent teams. I think sometimes XL beats out a team by just brute force of being better players, having more gold and deadly. But it feels like Barrage, very intelligent with how they play the map, especially when they play a wide map state with a 1-3-1. It feels like Ericsson and Flares are at home in the side lane. Now, that's not to say the team are flawless. I do feel like sometimes Flares can make quite a few mistakes and be punished for it in the top lane. Sybil, although he's been pretty consistent for the recent weeks, at the start of the split, did get caught out a few times for being over-aggressive. And although the bot lane has been very solid and Kevo becomes a really strong carry in the later stages, they're not as aggressive as bot lanes you see in the likes of, say, Deadly and Kasing, or even Mai and Bravado, I feel like, are more aggressive in the 2v2.
Yeah, I think the thing is with Hado specifically, I think Kevo's been brilliant. He's mechanically very sound. His positioning is fantastic in fights. But I've been most impressed with the way that Hado is so intelligent in his map play. You know, reminds me a little bit of Bravado in terms of the way he syncs up with Dan. But I think Hado does it sometimes without the volition of his jungler, does it without Sybil. He makes really intelligent roams. He's always looking to affect the map himself.
And I think you can see a difference in that Hado he finds these opportunities for him to move. Whereas I feel like Dan, he is the shot caller for Fnatic Rising, and he will go, Bravado, I want you here now.
Sure.
And you can see that sort of difference. So
I mean, Hado's got years of experience in the support role. I can't name a player that I think has been involved in the UK scene specifically for as long as Hado has. I remember going back when we had a final in Leicester in the Curve Theatre, which is very, very long time ago. Hado was there playing, and I'm talking 6-7 years ago. Hado was in the final playing, so he's been around the UK for a very long time.
So we have had all the bans come through in the first rotation. A lot of power picks taken off the cards.
Yeah,
no Eddie carries really touched yet, other than the Senna, and that allows MnM to have priority on that Misfortune. But we're seeing the Ornn first pick for Barrage, and this is 10.4.
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Ornn has nerfs on 10.5, but he's extremely strong right now. He has the benefit of the Sunfire buff as well, so it's an extremely powerful pick. Response going to come in from MnM. Mummus will pick up the Aatrox.
Classic Mummus pick.
Yeah, it's something he will very heavily lean on. I feel like him and Only Angel both are sort of the big Aatrox sort of players in the league. And the interesting thing is where Barrage are necessarily going to put the Ornn, because Flares, not to criticize too heavily, but he's been a little bit inconsistent in the top lane. He has been punishable at times. And I feel like if you put him on an Ornn, that's not really going to be possible to punish him. It's just such a strong champion that scales up. And then you can hand over the likes of the Aphelios to Kevo. And already this is seeming like an idealistic Barrage draft where they have the flex pick of the Ornn, they have the Aphelios to give them scaling, and Kevo has been monstrous on that champ. It's already a big ask for MnM to overcome these two massive picks.
I mean, what do you then pair this up with if you're going for the support or the jungle here, I guess? I mean, those would be the two obvious picks right now for Barrage.
This is interesting, man. I was going to say, I feel like a mid-jungle pick. I feel like LeBlanc would have been the go-to for me for Ericsson. He's been really strong on that champion. Although I think they want to keep the Ornn alive as a flex. That's the reason they won't go for it there. Because normally taking the LeBlanc into Chimera can be strong, but the reason that he's not going to be able to play it himself is because if you take LeBlanc here, then they just put the Ornn mid lane, and it really limits your effectiveness. So now you see Sybil picking up his Lee Sin, and the answer from Soft is going to be the Rek'Sai, which is interesting to me, because you could have taken the Gragas here. And I think the Gragas is a fine answer into the Lee Sin. It's not going to have quite as much ganking pressure in the early levels, but it does scale better.
Do you think this is just something, because this is something that our junglers have done quite a few times over the last few days. Do you think this is just a personal preference for a lot of junglers in which matchup they feel more comfortable in versus
maybe wanted to match the early pressure more. For me, I feel like Gragas is the better jungler. But another factor is also that Gragas doesn't really sync too well with Misfortune. Kind of a bit of anti-synergy between their ults. We see the Thresh now getting banned away from MnM, so we're going to shut down a pick that not only negates Leona, which is one of the greatest lane partners with Misfortune, but also gives a lot of safety to the Aphelios. They want the Aphelios to be punishable, and we could very well see MnM putting a lot of priority towards punishing this bot lane off Barrage, because I feel like any lane the Ornn gets stuck in, you're not really going to be able to do much.
I agree. The Yumi's going to come out as a ban here. I imagine we see supports mostly targeted now between these two teams. I think with the Thresh ban, you're probably looking to ban Leona if you're Barrage in this situation as well.
Potentially. I think they're looking first and foremost towards the Yumi because that's something they played yesterday. It had good synergy with the Rek'Sai.
Yes. That was a disgusting.
Tunnel in and apply that pressure, even though the laner phase was potentially a bit vulnerable. For MnM, you could go for the Braum here. But they're actually going to go for the LeBlanc away from Ericsson. So concerned about that in terms of applying that early pressure. It does mean the Braum is left open for the Aphelios. And I think that would be an okay matchup in Leona.
Yeah.
You're definitely not going to have as much pressure, but you scale extremely well and you can offer that protection. For Barrage, you could go that Leona banner. You could potentially look to just target something away from Chimera specifically. Although with the LeBlanc and the Syndra down, there's nothing that massively sticks out in my mind. We could potentially see Zoe, but he hasn't played too much of it so far. And they're actually going to ban the Braum away themselves, which is a bit of an interesting one to me.
Okay, so they're banning the Braum here. Do you think the MnM just go Leona at this point in time? Or do you think that's too much all-in, not enough protection?
I think Leona Misfortune's a really strong lane. The only thing they can answer with is the Tahm Kench. And even then, I don't think it's that bad of a matchup, the Leona to Tahm Kench. You can still actually punish the Tahm because there's just so much burst damage available.
Well, MnM are already thinking about it. They are going to go Ziggs. So Chimera takes Ziggs.
So holding off for the counter pick is the big thing. The Ziggs here, great synergy with the Misfortune because obviously you have two massive AoE ultimates, and it's going to make it very difficult for Kevo to play team fights. He doesn't have that protection for Thresh to land him out of a difficult situation. The Mega Inferno Bomb, the center, has 110% AP ratio, and it offers a lot of scaling, which you need when you're going up against Barrage's lineup so far.
This is something that we saw Hado play Taric yesterday, and they had a pretty good performance on it. It's a way to negate damage, but it's a bit slow, and then sometimes that can not be ideal.
I don't rate this here because the reason we saw it yesterday was because it was a Tahm blind pick from Envision. So it was an answer. They picked Tahm Kench, who doesn't offer much pressure. We're going to take Taric, who can negate that. This is not the situation here. This is Barrage going a little bit cocky with their bot lane picks because they've picked two scaling picks and not much protection for the Aphelios. So there's potential it could be punished. Now, Ericsson going to lock in the Rise, which is another scaling aspect. And overall, for me, on the side of Barrage, I feel like they're lacking enough to contest in the early game. I think this is the first time I've been a little bit
worried for their draft.
Yeah, and if they get through the early phases, their scaling is really powerful with their picks into the later stages of the game. But it's just, they're really reliant on Sybil having a great early game. And
Bard for Fias gets locked in right now. So we've got a Bard Misfortune lane. That feels like it's going to be tough for Hado here. Lots of ranged harass and very little way to answer for him.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult because you're losing priority in the bot lane. Ziggs can shove in pretty effectively in the mid lane as well, especially once he has Ludens. You just auto-lose priority against him permanently. Top lane, Flair's can actually hold his own. Ornn is pretty strong in that regard. But it's really not a great lane necessarily to play around unless you're shutting Mummers down. So I feel like MnM, they've come out of this draft pretty well. They have tools that are going to work for them in the late game. They've got strong team fight. If they can get on top of the back line of Kevo and Ericsson, it's going to be great. If it does go late into the game, they're going to have trouble because of the Taric to sort of round out things for Barrage. But I just think MnM, if they can get a solid early game again, if they can be the one dictating the pace, they have a good chance here.
Yeah, maybe Barrage, again, with this draft, where it does really feel like MnM are focusing on that bot lane as a priority for them. I expect to see a lot of pressure from Soft down there. Like you said, the Mummus Flares matchup's not going to be one that you're going to get huge amounts of love in. With the Ziggs lane in the mid, you're never really going to have too much kill pressure unless you can land the CC and get a good setup with Soft. But it really feels like with the Bard coming out in the bot lane, feels like that is going to be the focus. We might see some dives onto the Taric and the Aphelios, especially pre-6. Definitely looks that way. And again, like you said, there's not much early game here apart from the Lee Sin, I would say, for Barrage to be able to sort of mediate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a critical thing, is that Sybil needs to have a great game in a counter matchup. So it's a big ask. But I feel like we have seen before MnM not the greatest at sort of securing those objectives consistently. If they mess up on that, it's an opportunity for Barrage to pull ahead because MnM don't have the guarantee of if we go late game, we win this. We saw that yesterday against XL. When it got into the later stages, they had that sort of our comp just outperforms. They don't have that here because Rise is going to be a problem in the side lane. Aphelios with the Taric backing them up and the Ornn items. Now, that's not to say that if it goes late game, Barrage just auto win because there are a lot of tools on the side of MnM which can be really hard to deal with.
Lots of scaling on MnM too. I mean, Ziggs is one of the best scaling mages in the game.
Yeah.
And then you have Misfortune who scales nicely too.
I just feel like with how Barrage have been playing, if they do go late, it's going to be very difficult.
I agree. But MnM have had great early games. So, you know, they put XL on the back burner into the sense that, yes, okay, XL made really good map plays and that kept them ahead. But, you know, let's say MnM cleaned up their map presence. They cleaned up the way that they play around objectives. They would have crushed XL in that game, I feel. So I think...
that's a big if.
That's obviously a big if. That is a big if. I completely agree with you. And it's one of the criticisms that you've had for MnM throughout sort of their time in the UKLC, this split. I'm interested. I think MnM has potential. I really genuinely think they're a good contender for 4th spot here. And I think if you beat Barrage, you're setting yourself up so nicely.
They haven't fallen at the first hurdle because they have win conditions is the critical thing. I think the Taric pick was a bit ambitious from Barrage. I can understand the reason for it because it sort of does give you that safety net in the late stages, but it does mean your bot lane is going to be heavily threatened. You haven't given that element of protection to Aphelios.
Do you think Tarn was better in this situation? What do you think was a better pick?
I mean, I don't think either of these are sort of great blind picks in this situation. Potentially, they could have taken it early in the rotation, but I think they're just kind of...
They boxed themselves in with the draft.
Yeah, I feel like there aren't too many great picks. Maybe taking the support early in the rotation, it would have potentially given up the Lee Sin till later.
Yeah.
But I think you can handle that for Sybil. They're putting a lot of priority on him. The Thresh could have been a massive pick to be able to take that early in the rotation. It offers that element of safety of Aphelios. It has good matchups into enchanters because you can punish them with your aggression, but also good chance into matchups into melee champions like Leona because you can disengage her. I think that would have been the pick for me to come out here for Hado. And ultimately, I feel like this one, a little less sort of safety in the laning phase is the big thing. It's very much going to be bearing the brunt of a Bard misfortune. And Bard has received nerfs on live patch 10.5, but they're not in this current patch 10.4. So he's really powerful at the moment is the big takeaway. Yeah,
I mean, Ornn does Ornn things. You know, I think where they've had some big changes on 5. I'm still seeing bans on 10. Is it 10.5? Yeah, I'm right. 10.5 the bans. Yeah, I'm still seeing bans for him because I think people are still kind of unsure about his relative power strength.
He's still strong. He's just even stronger now.
Yeah.
With the Sunfire changes, and he was already a high prioritized pick in the current patch.
I think, again, I'm looking towards Ericsson Sybil. I think Ericsson has kind of always been the guy that I kind of laser focus on when it comes to Barrage. Maybe there's a chance that Sybil and Ericsson can get some kind of love in the mid lane, you know, put pressure on Chimera early on. He does have...
It's really hard against the Ziggs.
It is very hard.
He just outranges you.
And you can stop the Sonic Wave as well with the
I mean, if he's doing that, then he's the second coming of Faker, because that is difficult to do. You can throw it down, and then you can walk through, and you can like potentially threaten to interrupt it. But I feel like normally just using it to disengage. You throw it down, you use it to disengage from the situation. I'm just getting distracted by the chat. Sorry, I should put blinkers on.
I know. I intentionally don't read the chat. Although I agree with them.
Yeah. Moving on. So I think it's going to be difficult to punish the Ziggs because you have that massive range advantage. You have a lot of safety in your kit. You have as you said, the satchel charge can be used to interrupt the Lee Sin, but the big thing is it offers you that disengage for yourself.
Sure.
Even if the Lee Sin gets on top of you, you can throw it down between yourselves and get away. He should just be looking to have a fairly non-interactive lane where he just pokes the Rise out. And my big concern is this bot lane in terms of the pressure sort of given over to Misfortune and Bard.
Do you think, though, if a Barrage transitioned into a 1-3-1, they are better off?
I mean, yeah, but not by much. I mean, Rise can just sit in the side lane.
And just shockwaves.
But Ziggs also has TP. And I mean, I guess you can't really pressure too much with an Aphelios in the mid lane, so it's not going to make too much of a difference. And Ziggs can always just he can leave the lane, and then the next wave, he can throw his ult down and kill it, and then he can be there. And it's all pretty short cooldown, in all honesty, later in the game. So I feel like it's not going to be that much of an issue. If they play it intelligently, they can definitely find advantages. If they wear MnM thin, because MnM keep trying to group, keep trying to find fights, which is what we've seen, then yes. But on paper, just looking at the champions, I don't think it's going to be a massive advantage.
Ziggs just clear waves.
Ziggs just sits in side lane, wave clear, wave clear, wave clear, and then when something happens, you can TP in. Now, I will say Ryze is better at TPing in late than a Ziggs is, because Ziggs, you want to be there providing peel on your backline.
You never really find, unless you're teleporting outside the fight, right? So
yeah, which you want. I mean, it's not even that. It's just like Misfortune could be dead by the time you TP in, which you're trying to sort of protect. Whereas Ryze, he is his own carry in and of itself. It's not to say Ziggs isn't, but a big aspect of Ziggs' sort of play is the fact that he offers that level of peel.
So I'm just going to give you an update, guys. We have to restart the game. We have essentially 2 players from MnM. We're seeing a ridiculous code all over the screen, and they couldn't get rid of it by restarting clients. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut to a quick break. We are going to make sure that we're back into game, ready to go when we come back, and then we'll dive into our first game between Barrage and MnM. Oh, hey guys, how's it going? We're back to the UKLC. We're jumping into a game between MnM and Barrage. Now, we had the delay because there is a Discord bug going around that was unfortunately causing some sort of like Windows corrupt installation. There was like text all over the screen for 2 of the MnM players. So we did want to make sure that we've got it sorted for them.
My interpretation was Soph and Chimera got trapped in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Saw the text in front of them like Neo, but we managed to pull them out.
Which one of them is the one?
For MnM right now, probably Chimera. He's on the Ziggs.
He's on the Ziggs.
Yeah, I have faith in that pick. So we'll be getting into the game shortly. We can sort of run over a bit more once again and remind you what happened in the draft. I feel like Barrage, they have Lee Sin for Sybil, which is going to be a huge factor. The rest of the team, a bit more leaning on the scaling side, so they need that early momentum for him. For MnM, they definitely have more pressure in the early levels. They have priority in the bot side of the map. Top lane, they don't, but it's less relevant because then Aatrox will scale up to be a strong team fighter. And they have a counter matchup in the jungle because they have the Rek'Sai for Soph into that Lee Sin. So we're looking for MnM taking early fights, good control of objectives, which they've struggled with against the top teams before, and sort of transition that into a strong mid game and take the game from there. For Barrage, they either need Sybil to contest that, interrupt those plans, and then allow them to get to the point where they outscale, because they have things like the Taric, the Phelios, the Rise. Although I will say is that even if they get to the late stages, it still can be a little bit fickle because they find backline access that a Mega Inferno Bomb can just one-shot a squishy, and that could be it.
Yeah, well, I think you gave a pretty good summary of where we're at with these compositions. We are now into game. Looks like we have everything under control, ready to jump in. So sorry for the delay on our first game of the night, but I'm sure it will be a good one. Remember, Barrage looking to keep toe-to-toe with with XL with only 1 loss on the board. They don't want to make that 2 here versus MnM. And MnM are in big spots to contend for the 4th place right now. That's really probably their goal, to make playoffs. There's a pretty solid lead for Fnatic, Barrage, and XL over anyone else that is closest to them. So MnM right now really in battle with Envision mostly to get that 4th spot.
Yeah, that's a big target, is looking at Envision. Envision did lose to Barrage quite significantly yesterday. So this is definitely an opportunity where if MnM take this match, it sets them in good stead for their match against Envision, which is an important one for setting the standings later in the week.
Was there any weaknesses of Barrage that you think MnM can exploit? Because I found it difficult to pinpoint people, but I think Sybil has been a bit up and down occasionally.
So at the start of the split, Sybil was what I heard about him coming into the split was that he's very feast or famine.
Yeah.
He is at the start of the split as well. I saw a couple of moments where he overstepped and got punished. But since then, he has been pure feast. This guy has been playing extremely well, getting fed consistently, and performing what his team needs. I think Flares has had some rough moments. I remember there was a Kennen game which wasn't too hard. His Sona game as well against XL was pretty... But on Ornn, I'm convinced it's a pick where he can just hold his own in the top lane and serve his role for the team. Now, I will say that maybe my big concern is that bot lane can sometimes be not the most aggressive in 2v2 compared to the likes of Fnatic and XL. Now, that's not an issue. That's fine. But the reason that's concerning here is because what they drafted. So they drafted a pretty defensive bot lane, and if they give up too much pressure, it could give an avenue for Barrage to sort of struggle in the game, give an opportunity for MnM to step up.
Right, Hado goes for a very early stun there just to put some pressure on, make sure they don't get level 2'd essentially. And it has allowed Kavo to build up a little bit of a wave advantage here just to stop them from getting harassed out too early.
It's pretty crazy, all things considered, because it should be Bard MF at level 1, just completely dictating the lane. They're so much stronger, but...
they've given a lot of space to Hado and Kevo here.
Yeah, maybe a bit too much. The fact that Hado and Kevo are hitting level 2 first here is...
That's a big no-no, is it?
Big no-no. I mean, you have double ranged against ranged melee. Bard should just be helping you shove in the wave, and I think he kind of didn't set that priority up. And there's a good trio of wards here, completely covering the river. So if Sybil wanted to go for any sort of plays, he'd be shut down pretty quickly. And it means that Soph, essentially, he would be able to see if any wards has been placed. He knew a ward has been placed here in the river. He's now seen Sybil as well. He has full information on everything happening on the bot side. He was going to look for a gank there, but he does not want to get countered, so he's going to back away. Sybil walks over the ward. They have full information thanks to this one place down by Chimera. So right now, MnM fully informed, and I believe Soph didn't get caught on the ward there, so this is an unseen gank path, and Hado and Kevo are very stepped up.
Yeah, they are. And now Soph's going to turn up behind Kevo here. Kevo trying to go as aggressive as possible. The stun not quite in the best position, and Kevo's actually going to flash over the wall here, continue to run. Soph may be looking for the unburrow. I think Kevo's just dead, though, and everybody else is going to back off in this situation.
He's waiting for the turret cooldown, essentially, to get underneath him. It's coming up now, so you'll be able to knock him up. And it's a lot of time wasted. The first blood still goes to Achu. but it's Summoners traded and Softs used as well. And it's a lot of time bought for that kill. So ultimately, it's not going to be too bad for Barrage because they bought so much time. But it's still a massive advantage to MnM. They pulled ahead in terms of gold. The wave is actually in a spot where it's not too bad for Barrage, so that's not going to punish them massively. You can see now that they're trying to shove it in, and it won't be too long till Kevo comes in here to catch it. So I was actually trying to catch it in front of the tower. I'm not sure what the thought process was there.
He just wanted to take a couple of tower shots. You know?
I mean, this potentially sets up Kevo and Hado to freeze it here if they want to.
He was just helping them freeze it, you know, getting back in the game. That's a good guy of Fires.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's not going to freeze because the cannon ends up going in the tower.
That's a bit of a BM.
But either way, it's not an awful lane position for Barrage. That's a big takeaway. Not an awful lane position. Sums traded fairly evenly. It is now going to shove out, though, which would have happened anyway if they bounced it in. Nice little tunnel just to get you back to lanes.
Love that little bard thing, you know, just right down the side of the map.
So the one concern here is that Kevo is now flashless and the wave is pushing out. So it means that he's potentially again going to be in a vulnerable position. Right now, Rek'Sai is on the other side of the map. But the ideal situation for MnM here is they can freeze it in front of the tower and they can force Kevo and Hado to overextend. And you can see from how they're standing, they are super concerned about Rek'Sai being here. They don't have the information on him. And so they are playing super respectfully despite it just being a Chun lane. I mean, look at this. They just won't walk up. They are so scared. They do have a ward in the Dragon Pit. This is the exact route that Soft took to get that gank. And they have the control ward in the Tri-Brush, so they're covered to a degree. But there's still that big path. If you look, I mean, you can see where the wards are here. If Soft took that path round and looped through the enemy jungle, he would be able to get behind them without being seen. So that's the concern. And right now, Sibyl's in the vicinity hovering, but this lane has been frozen in front of the tower. So it's a rough spot for Kevo and Hado to be in. And they're forcing the jungler to sit bot and basically try and help them escort the wave in is the main priority. Sibyl actually trying to go for the dragon here because he has priority in bot lane as a result of the freeze. But he would be spotted out. Fire's taking quite a few tower hits here.
Yeah, gonna go for the engage. We do have a roam coming down from Ziggs. Fires jumps through. Good stun. Good timing of the stun as well from Hado. Soft takes a huge amount of damage there. Teleport coming through to catch them out as well. Fire's now going to be the target. And Flares, Call of the Forge God, gets a good knock up into a stun from Hado. And Achu does not have that flash available. Yes, okay, Mumma's coming in. Cleans up a couple of members. He might be able to turn things around here. Hado doing what he can, flashes out. Brilliant stuff from him. This is a big, big win here for Barrage. A good counter gank.
And I'm just shocked. Mumma's actually probably going to go down here as well.
You a shooketh?
I just don't know what Fires was doing. That was a journey. It wasn't exactly magical, but it was a journey, all right. Just overreaching. Flair's going to go down to an execute. Yeah, I mean, it's a good reaction from Barrage. I'll say that. It was a good response from them to punish. But MnM just overreaching massively. I mean, it was just comically bad.
It really was. It was
overforced is the thing I would say. They decided to tunnel in. You could see that it wasn't going to put them in a good stead because they were right next to the tower. They were already out of the gank. You should have just accepted. They've gotten away. Let's get the dragon instead.
Can I give credit to Hado, though, for a really wonderfully timed stun from the Taric and positional?
No. It was nice, but I mean, they magical journeyed into it.
I'm not.
You press E, it's like, oh, I wonder where they're going to be in a second.
He like timed it so it was instantaneous when they got out of the end of the magical journey. There was no time to react. I thought it was just pretty. I thought it was all right.
It was nice.
Obviously, I'm not saying like it was the best thing to have happened since sliced bread.
I mean, I'm not gonna criticize Hado here, right?
No.
You know, Hado did his job. He did exactly what he needed to do. But this was MnM basically handing them the kills on a platter.
Look, MnM entered it. I'm very well aware. I'm just saying.
You're trying to spin it into a positive.
I'm just trying to be positive.
I'm not having it. I'm not having it. Okay. That was just pure int.
It was kind of it.
It was just one of those moments where the bard he makes the journey. He's like, I've got to do it.
You know, it's like Bard's. It's like Lee Syndrome, but with Bard.
Speaking of Lee Sin, ultimately this is a game where we talked about how MnM wanted to have that early pressure. Lee Sin's 3-0-2. He's already completed his warriors.
He's 100% kill participation as well. I've got to say, again, this is almost in the same vein of the way that you just talked about, right? I feel like he was just given all of that. Like, he obviously reacted really well in the gank and was in the right position.
Yeah, Barrage did everything they need to. They played it well. Yeah. The coordination was good. They reacted well. but this was like an unforced error from MnM.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to like take away from Barrage.
No.
It is just, it's what we expect from them. They are a very good, very clean team. But MnM just, that one's gonna hit. Not as much as a Renekton an Aatrox backdoor.
An Aatrox backdoor, yeah.
But still gonna hit.
What I did like about what MnM were doing in the early game was how their vision was basically set up to play around that bot side of the map. And I think they sort of had the good idea very early on, but they kind of lost that now. What? Oh, Mummus, no, that's not what you want to do. Flair is just wailing on him. Mummus, again, another big unforced error from MnM. Trading back nicely here. Flair is, I think he might even end up losing this. I think he missed his bellow, and therefore...
Yeah, missed his bellow's breath. Oh, missed the knock-up there as well.
You've got to get the bellow's breath, mate. You've got to get it. No! Okay. that was definitely something.
Both of them misplaying it about as much as you can. Mummus taking the tower hits, and then Flair should have been able to kill him with the Ignite, but the bellow's breath came in and ended up missing. And then Mummus just ended up turning around the knock-up as well, hitting the pillar and not knocking him up. So it's just a comedy of errors. And ultimately, Mummus comes out slightly ahead, even though he really shouldn't have.
That really looked like a fight that Flair should have 100% won in that scenario. He just missed that bellow's breath at the end there. Unfortunately, couldn't get the brittle and therefore just didn't get the work done. It's going to be an ultimate coming in from Rise here. Ericsson just doing what he can to pressure out. They want to go for this first turret. They should, with the charge from Shelly, be able to get it.
I think they might be able to answer in the mid lane. I don't think they'll get the whole tower, but Zig's very good at taking down tower plates because you have the short fuse, extra damage to towers, so they will get 2 in this situation. Not a great trade, definitely not, but you know, you got something at least. Ultimately though, Barrage in control this early game. Ever since that skirmish where they just cleaned up, they swapped up to the top side of the map, got that Herald, transitioned it into a tower. They're looking like Barrage, is what I can say. They're looking good. Yeah,
classic Barrage coming out here right now. They're about 2,000 gold in the lead. Remember, this is the team that is second in the standings. They're ahead of Fnatic by a single point right now. And they've been playing like they are ahead of Fnatic in general. They've been very clean throughout. There's a slight pause because obviously MnM have had to move from Discord to
smoke signals.
Yep, smoke signals.
So they're actually using smoke signals.
One of their fires went out.
Yeah, so they're going to have to rekindle it, get that one going, and oh, it's sorted.
Wow, that was a quick fire restart.
Yeah, I think one of them had to come off the computer and just like go over and, you know,
I think one of the carrier pigeons died on the way.
Maybe. That could have been it. They've sent another one out, so it should be fine. Communications back in force.
Oh, Hado and Kavo just back down bot. Remember, they've taken that top lane. They're taking the Rift Herald, so they're just happy to switch back down towards bot, play around the next Drake, which will be spawning in, about 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, and if... Obviously, MnM got the first one, so that does delay the Dragons, but realistically, Barrage have a lot of scaling, so that's not too much of their concern. They found flares here, but Soft unable to do too much more. Soft was like, okay, we back off, and
that was
then
ambitious.
FIS was like, no, we're still going, and that won't kill you.
Ericsson was stepped right into the center of the Mega Inferno bomb there, but he does back out, and
not quite enough damage.
No,
Ziggs right now. That does a lot of damage later in the game, but for now, not too much, and they'll get a bit more damage in the mid tower. But Chu,
I think he's already used his charge here, and
heal.
The rest,
they're going to take him down.
Yeah, the rest of MnM turn up. Flares is going to flash over the wall here. He hasn't got the blast clone to work with, and Sof is very, very excited to continue that chase. Flares jumps away. Mummus is going to not land anything, but I don't even think get an assist there. But the rest of the team do pick up the kill.
Yeah, Flair's overstepping a bit, trying to find the Misfortune, ultimately misses the Searing Charge knockup. Achu still had Summoners, didn't have to use the flash there, so again, Flair's making some mistakes. He is on the weak side, he shouldn't be looking for those aggressive plays. And if there's any sort of avenue back in this game for MnM, that could be it. But ultimately, they've put Phelios in the bot lane, he's taking another tower, and they take the Dragon as well, so... Game still firmly in control of Barrage, but they're trading.
They're trading where they don't really need to in some ways, but
yeah, MnM are getting stuff in return. They got a couple of plates top, they got a couple of plates mid, but they're still losing out massively.
Yeah.
Now 3,000 gold behind. The Dragons have been equalized. Kevo's gonna have a ton of gold from those plates he's picked up. Sibyl's still really strong. It's not good for MnM by any means, but it could be worse.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they're getting something. Now you see the Ludens has been finished for Chimera. That should allow him to shove that lane in fairly consistently. And he's already taken a bit of, or that mid lane tower's taken a bit of a beating so far already. So, you know, with Ziggs, if you just get the opportunity, usually just below 2 plates, is it like 1.5? You should be able to just blow that up with your satchel charge.
Yeah, it's a little bit over 1 actually. It's about 27%. Rank 1 of the satchel, I believe. From what I've seen, every Ziggs I've seen so far has been going the max on the hex explosive mines. Although since the buffs to the satchel, it's actually a fine to max that second as well. And it would increase the damage threshold for taking down a tower. I think it's just flat 25 at rank 1. Actually, Flare steals away that red buff, so a bit unlucky Soft not having the smite. 25%, yeah. So at rank 2, it's 27.5, goes up by 2.5 this time. Right now, just a quarter.
Clara is now coming in to put pressure onto Chimera here. One of the beautiful things that Ziggs can do, though, is making sure that you have no wave when you're trying to dive, and now Flare again misses the charge.
I mean, they got the kick, and then they missed everything afterwards.
And he also, just to boot, misses the Call of the Forge God.
A little bit rough. I mean, I guess this is the issue with trying to practice on. It's perma-banned all the time.
You just don't get the opportunity. No idea that Ericsson does not want to go toe-to-toe. I think he's just had to burn his flash. I can have a look at that summoner. He's had to burn that flash. Mummus obviously went all in to put pressure on him.
As well.
Yeah, with the ultimate, and he's going to lose that.
So Mummus doing work in this side lane. Actually looking to punish Ericsson. Gets off Summoner Spell, gets the tower as well. So small consolation prize.
Ericsson now going back in and trading. That's a lot of damage that Mummus is taking, but Soft is here, as is a Fire. So they are going to use that...
Oh my god!
I'm like bronze, and I knew what to do in that situation.
oh, that's a Fires. I'm helping.
Isn't the radius of the Bard ultimate bigger than the radius of the...
Yes, but that wouldn't have been as funny. See, if I see, he's a bit of a comedian. He just pulled a little prank on Soft there. He's going to post that to YouTube later, saying, Bard prank. Pull a Bard prank on my teammates, see what happens.
Pull a Bard prank in a very, very important competitive match. Oh, goodness me. What is it with the Keck W's?
Peaked.
The Keck W's. That,
League of Legends has peaked.
Yeah.
That's it. Just an amazing play.
I don't know what else we can say about that. Let's carry on with other things. Mega Inferno Bomb clears the wave out very nicely. It's one of the beautiful things of Ziggs. You can impact those side lanes or even just desperation clear waves when you need to protect your structures, and he does so in the mid lane.
Yeah, so it's going to allow them to sort of keep check of on reset timings. When Ziggs goes back to base and is walking up, he's able to clear out a wave before he gets there. And it means that Barrage are going to struggle to apply more pressure than they have already, which means there's potential. Oh, Ericsson moving 3 from phase rush. Essentially just handles that pretty cleanly. They're now looking to pressure mid, and they do have the Rift Herald. They picked up the second one, so they're going to throw that down, and this will be enough. Just shy to take down the tower, but if they force up, they can probably just finish it off.
Yeah.
And you can see the reaction comes in. They're backing away. Oh, actually, great.
Oh, he redeemed himself.
Yeah, stops the charge, and actually that just means they can clear it out.
That's redemption right there from Matthias.
Yeah.
Knew he had to make a big ult comeback in that situation.
Had to use his ultimate to help his team rather than the enemies.
You've done right, Matthias. You've made a good play.
Oh, Hadou actually gets knocked back.
He's forced to flash here. Mega Inferno Bomb comes through. Not enough damage to take out the shield and the Taric.
Yeah, I don't think Soft wants to go for that one with the ult. But Flashburn does something, and they defend the tower, which I honestly didn't expect when the Herald was coming down. So good usage off the Bard ultimate.
However, they have taken down Taric very low in anticipation of this Dragon coming up, which would be the second of the game for either team.
Chef MnM, do you want to contest this one? I know Taric is low, but he does have a lot of sustain. Especially if you can walk up to the minions, you can Q, auto heal, auto heal, and repeat that because of the cooldown reduction on his passive Bravado. So they're actually looking for Hadou now. No flash.
He has to burn that ultimate coming through. Will be procced in time. Chu has burnt a big teamfight ultimate in this situation also, but you would probably take that in terms of like for like. Sybil now forced away. Call it the Forge God was a zoning one. Let's call it a zoning one.
Yeah, hit the dragon.
Yep.
That showed him.
That showed that dragon. I don't think Barrage are in the right position.
They're looking for the steal.
They may be looking for the steal. Sybil does get stopped in his tracks though. Now Mummus is going to chase him down. Hado and Sybil by themselves. Good stun from Hado. Will it be enough to get them out as Mummus continues the pressure? And actually,
Mummus is huge here.
He is absolutely massive in this situation. Loads of flashes having to come out from Barrage. Ericsson and Kevo running with their tail between their legs right now. Look at Mummus go. Soft picks up the kill. Ericsson will go down, and that is an ace for MnM. I don't think Barrage needed that dragon that much.
And this is an example, MnM struggling in terms of matching and objectives, but great at the skirmishes and the team fights. Mummus was huge there, finding the flank. And the backline, they had no Cosmic Radiance to protect them. We said in the later stages, it might be difficult to deal with this Aphelios and this Rise, but they're not at that stage yet.
Honestly, Mummus on Aatrox is actual smash.
Just Mummus. This guy is actually such a great player.
He's a really, really, really good top laner. I think I voted him for Rookie of the Split, the first split that he played in the UK.
I think a lot of people had the impression that despite the fact that the Academy teams outperformed MnM, he was the best top laner just because of how well he performed consistently. He was aggressive when he needed to be, and despite the fact he didn't make top 2, didn't make EU Masters, he was strong enough to get picked up and go to the Brazilian League, have a run there, and then he's moved back and popping off right now in this game for MnM.
Yeah, I do hope this guy gets more of a chance, in terms of the wider spectrum of League of Legends in the future.
This is the chance.
Yeah, very true. I mean, you make it to the European Masters, that's the best stage in Europe to prove yourself. So, Momo's doing what he can to give MnM the wins necessary to put themselves in contention for that 4th spot. Because I really don't see anyone really challenging the stranglehold that, even if Barrage lose this, I mean, they still have such a stranglehold on the upper end of the table right now.
And I was going to say, it was just great coordination from the whole team, making the call to sort of punish Hado for the lack of flash. I mean, getting the lack of flash from Hado down to Chimera, and then Mummus and Eschew punish him to force the ultimate, and that's when they say, okay, go. We've burnt the Cosmic Radiance, which is one of the massive power budgets of Barrage. I mean, Taric, outside of his ultimate, isn't that great. A lot of his sort of strength is sort of tied up in how great his ultimate is. And without it, kind of put them on a massive back foot. And MnM now in the goal lead, 2 dragons up, potentially looking to punish Ericsson. Well, Sybil is there.
It's going to be the ultimate coming through from Aphias. Big ultimate coming out of Misfortune 2. Ericsson will survive with the Archangels only for a moment as Sybil, he commits himself to that. I really don't think he needed to. That is going to be the magical journey.
That's a good journey.
That's a good journey. Kick is good, but is it good enough? I don't think so. The rest of Barrage here. The snipe from Soft. They're going to try and trade mid lane turret here, but it is Ziggs, remember. Ziggs is very good at just clearing out waves when he needs to.
This tower is still going to go, though.
Yeah, no, I think so, too.
There's still 2 minions alive. Although, actually, yeah, he would have been able to defend that if he threw those at the minions instead of at Kevo, but they're going on the Baron.
Straight for Baron right now. That's going to be the scrying orb coming out. Aphias now doing what he can. Actually, a good knock-up from Flare is this time. Damage coming through.
I think you have to give it the Baron now. You're taking too much. They're going back on it.
They're still going.
They're refusing to give up.
There's a lot of damage to burn through right now.
Flares misses the ult.
He does miss the ult as well, and Kevo now has that Taric invulnerability. They will stop that Baron happening. That is a good result.
They're trying to hold it, though. They're trying to hold it. They want to do it themselves.
They want to keep it going right now.
The Blast Cone's there, and they have Smite, but they're waiting for Sybil to get over.
Oh, this is going to be a close one. I actually think it's a fairly smart move from Barrage right now. The Realm Warp coming through, trying to get them around that turret. This is actually going to be a big play. A big play if Barrage can take this down, but the 50-50 Smite is always an issue as Ericsson takes a huge amount of damage from Mummus right now. Just make your minds up, guys. Make your minds up. Either go for the 50-50 or go for the engage. MnM want the engage. They dive over. They steal the Baron. The Mega Inferno Bomb tears them apart, and Aphias will lock things up again with the ultimate. The ultimate comes through from Misfortune 2, and they will clean up once more. Barrage, what on earth were you doing?
What a clutch play from MnM. They try and hold the Baron. They see the low HP bars of MnM, but Soft is patient. He waits for his moment, comes over the wall, gets the steal, and then the team fight as well. We talked about the AoE strength of these ultimates for MnM, and they deliver. This is them looking at Barrage. The team only been taken down by the academies so far, Fnatic and XL. And once more, we see MnM.
Only by XL. They haven't even lost to Fnatic.
True, absolutely. Yeah. Only taken down by XL. And this is right now MnM saying, we're looking to upset teams. They nearly did it against XL yesterday. They're looking like they're going to do it here against Barrage. 5,500 gold up. Baron in their pockets. Huge amount of golds across every member. And they have scaling. You know, we talked about how maybe if the game was even, it would be concerning trying to deal with the Rise and the Aphelios, but not in this situation. Ziggs is doing tons of damage. Chewy's got the Infinity Edge and the Essence Reaver. That ultimate is shredding. And the big one is Mummers. This game, a lot of it has been top difference.
Oh, hugely. I don't even think you could say any otherwise. Flares has had a pretty rough one, and it is a 7-1 for Aatrox.
Flares has just been inconsistent, landing the abilities, missing his ultimate in that last fight. Hasn't looked good, but Mummers has been completely on point. And now look to pressure this mid tower. 3 members went top. Kevo caught out.
Fire, so it will be the Taric ultimate that will probably save the day here for Kevo. It's going to be an ultimate coming through that knocks in. The Call of the Forge God does do work. Nice bullet time coming out, but it won't actually get as much done as it needs to, as now a big flank coming through. Is this the kick that it needs to be? It might be, because the knockup is there as well, but they just don't have the damage. Kevo is zoned out. Chimera is still throwing down bombs. This might just be game here, because Mummers is going 1-for-1 with Ericsson.
Wait.
The stopwatch is there. He'll dive in and he'll get the ace as well. MnM are going to try and go for the end.
MnM, we did not expect it coming into this week for them to challenge XL. And we thought maybe it's a fluke. Maybe they got lucky, they found better skirmishes, they found the scaling, but inevitably they still lost. But here, they take a game to Barrage, they manage to outplay them in the Baron area, they punish them on the skirmishes, and they get the win.
Beautiful stuff. I mean, like I said, I actually don't think what Barrage was doing around Baron was technically a bad idea. It was the execution once they decided.
It was risky, I'll say that.
It was definitely risky, but I feel like you either just burst Baron and go for the 50-50, because if you can't kill Soft, then it's a 50-50 at the end of the day, or you just force the fight.
Yeah, and they were against a Ziggs, so Ziggs is just throwing bombs over the wall.
But they delayed it so long.
They just took so much.
And they were getting shredded magic resist that entire time, and then Ziggs just got a huge amount of damage off. It was just... It's so indecisive, it physically made me cringe. Like, I just think that, you know, that I loved the idea, I loved what they were attempting to achieve, because that was basically you flipping a Baron on its head. Yes, you were going to go to a 50-50, I think, with Soft, but, you know, you had the opportunity to then engage with Flares if you wanted to. That was...
But the point I'll make is, did they need to do that?
No, they didn't need to. They could have just stopped the Baron and backed off, yeah.
Did they need to fight that dragon when they lost the Cosmic Radiance?
Nope.
No. And I think this is a situation where Barrage, this isn't their best draft so far. I think they didn't give themselves enough agency, especially in the bot lane. I think you saw Fires making a massive impact, sometimes against his team, sometimes for his team. But I think I'm not a big fan.
He made up for that ult.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the blind Taric. I don't think it gave them enough tools. Ericsson wasn't something that was looking to scale up, and they had pressure against. And ultimately, although they found that favorable skirmish in the early game, that was a mistake from MnM. And then from then out, they decided to contest the fight, being down Cosmic Radiance. They lost that. They decided to overstay at the Baron, despite taking the poke from Ziggs, and they lost that. And ultimately, I think MnM making some great calls here. They are just roaming around the map, and I think Ephias and Soft are the big ones here, who are moving around together and just looking for picks. And they were consistently finding them. And it really shuts down Barrage's plan, because often what they do when they're struggling in the game is they split into a wide map state. They go into a 1-3-1, and they can find advantages from that. But here, they weren't allowed to, because anytime Ericsson tried to step up in the side lane, he was picked off, caught out, the other team punishes. And this time it wasn't enough. They got the win. Mummers,
I think, was a defining factor in a lot of the fights as well. He had an absolutely incredible game. But look, we can't spend too long talking about this one. We were already behind schedule with the delay. So let's jump into our next game after a short break. It's going to be Envision versus Enclave.